Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. I'm Peg City Hockey, and today I'm going to be talking about the two big signings that have just happened in NHL today involving the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Winnipeg Jets. Now, the first signing I want to talk about is the signing of Alexander Barabanov by the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Toronto Maple Leafs just signed the 25-year-old winger to a one-year $925,000 deal. It's a very good contract for them when you look at his overall playing capabilities. He has won an Olympic gold with Russia in 2018, so he has experience winning. That's something that the Leafs really need right now. I'm not trying to take a dig at you guys, but it's a good contract for them for going into next season. The problem with this contract, when you get into it, it actually is a great contract on the surface. It just comes when you look at it as a what-if situation if you're a Leafs fan, because this could kind of play out very similar to what happened with Alexander Radulov when he came over to the Montreal Canadiens a few years ago. And I say that not because, he's going to score that many goals and become a really good, solid NHL goal-scoring player, because he could, but where I'm saying that is that they might have issues re-signing him after this one-year contract is up. Because the Leafs, as we all know right now, have $40 million committed just to their top four forwards. And because of that, they don't have a lot of cap. We all know this isn't news. So if he has a very good year with the Leafs, they're not going to be, obviously he's going to be requiring a pay raise from $925,000 on that one-year deal. Now, because of this, will the Leafs be able to give it to him, or will they actually eventually lose him in free agency? We don't know. He could even leave after a few games with the team. North American hockey might not be for him. There's a lot of what-if situations. The only thing we know right now is that according to Sheldon Keefe, he is a very important piece of the puzzle that they've been after for a long time. So if you look at it that way, you can have hope that it'll be a really good year he'll have with the team next year. I'm expecting him to fit in with the bottom six somewhere, maybe getting a little bit of power play time, penalty kill, depending on how well he plays and meshes with the team. Overall, it's a really good signing for them for depth. It's an affordable depth signing, so if it does work out well for that 1 year, it's a great contract. It just comes with the issues in that we don't know whether or not they're going to be able to re-sign him, because we don't know whether or not he's going to play well. It's a really what-if situation with this contract, because you have to think of it as, if you're a Leaf fan, like, well, yeah, it's a great contract for us to have good depth for 1 year going to the next season, but what happens if we lose him because he actually plays well, and because of that, we're going to need to give him a pay increase? Now, hopefully, if the best case scenario for the Leafs, they give him a contract similar, maybe around $2 million, they can maybe make that work. But even then, they're going to have to go in and look at their cap structure and see if they have to make moves depending on how much he wants and what their situation is at the time. And because of that, it's kind of a what-if contract. So I look at it right now as really good depth, but I just hope that the Leafs can figure out a way to keep him if he plays well, because the Leafs need to keep bringing in depth. They don't have a lot of leadership on that team right now. They traded Marlowe. They've had to deal with a lot of issues with signing people. I think the Leafs are going to be good overall. I just think they need more depth. I think they need a little bit better defense, and they could be a really, really good dynasty for a long time. Now, this type of contract is great to bring in for depth, but it's an issue when you can't keep that depth because you can't afford to. That's kind of where I'm at with this contract. Overall, I think it's a great signing for the Leafs. I think if you're a Leafs fan, you should be really happy with it to have a guy like Barabanov going into next season. So look at it as it's great for next season, but you only really need to get worried depending on how well he plays. So you'll kind of get an idea about that maybe around Halloween. So once it gets to around Halloween, starting into the holiday season, if he's playing really well, that's when, if you're a Leafs fan, you should be getting worried. Now, we also have another big announcement to add that is a big signing in the NHL, and that is involving the Winnipeg Jets finally signing prospect Dylan Samberg to a 3-year entry-level deal that carries an annual value of $1.175 million for the next 3 years. Now, I already made a video talking about Dylan Samberg, so I won't go too much into detail of what type of player he is. I'll link that video in the description below if you're more curious about who he is. He's a really good prospect. He's spent the last 3 years with Minnesota Duluth. This year was his best campaign overall. He put up 21 points in 28 games for the Bulldogs. And he was overall really, really solid for them. And he's developed very, very nicely over his time in college in the NCAA. And overall, I predict him to develop into a guy similar to what Josh Morrissey is. I don't think he's going to be a huge point defenseman, but he's going to be a solid two-way guy who can eat a lot of minutes. And that's exactly what the Jets need. One of the biggest issues the Jets saw this year with their blue line isn't actually losing everybody. It came with the fact that they relied too heavily on where their minutes were. And to further on that, what I mean is that when you're giving a guy like Dustin Byfuglien that many minutes, and Josh Morrissey that many minutes, and Tyler Myers that many minutes, And I'm not even just talking about their level of play. I'm talking about how much they actually played. If you actually look at how much the Winnipeg Jets players on defense in the last few years have played, it's actually some of the highest in the league, behind like Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson, some of the best offensive guys we've had in the NHL in the last decade, you would say. But when you actually go and look, the issues with this year was that we didn't have a lot of guys who could play, minute munch that well. Neil Pionk developed really well into a minute munching guy who could play a lot of heavy minutes, and that was really, really key for the Winnipeg Jets. Neil Pionk developed into so many different roles this year for the team that you can't even really focus on one of them without going into the other, because it's just he developed so nicely this year. It was beautiful to watch, and because of that, we have a guy like Neil Pionk now, and also we have Josh Morrissey. If you bring in a guy like Dylan Samberg, who can play a lot of minutes and can play that good style of solid two-way defense, that just takes a lot more off of guys that are more offensive based. For example, like Neil Pionk, even though he is better a lot now at defense, he can more focus on offense, which is good because now that we don't have Dustin Byfuglien, we have that loss of offensive flair. Now, if Dylan Samberg can kind of develop into what Tyler Myers was, obviously not with the height, that would be really, really good for us, a solid two-way guy. I think next year he'll most likely play between the second pairing and third pairing. Overall, though, it's a really good signing. I was worried we were going to end up losing him, but I'm really happy to see him finally come back. He was drafted 43rd overall, so he is a pretty, high drafted player, and it's really good to see him. There's been a lot of rumors about how he might not sign with the Jets, and that how we might look to sign elsewhere, like we've seen with some similar college prospects, similar like Jimmy Vesey, that type of situation. But it's really good to see him sign. It is a kind of a little bit of a big contract. I would like to see it being a little bit less, but at the same time, if this is what it took to sign him, I think it's well worth it for the team. We don't have as much defense as people think, really, in hindsight, for good quality defensive prospects outside of Samberg and Heinola, so it's really, really good and key to keep this type of player, and let's hope that his development can be really well, because his contract begins with the team next year, so let's see what he can do, and let's hope that he can improve the blue line so that we can get back to that level of contending. And with that, that concludes the news about those two signings that I want to talk about today. It felt really, really nice to wake up this morning and see some positive NHL news for a change that didn't have to do with anything being suspended. So it's really fun to finally be able to talk about something interesting about the future and positive about the future and not have to be all gloomy. So this is really nice to see. Hopefully we can get into some more signings and we can start to get some more information coming out about the National Hockey League and about what the future is going to look like. That's going to be really key, because in reality we all need to try to stay positive in these dark times. So with all of this, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what your thoughts are on these signings down below in the comment section below. If you're brand new to this channel or you just so found it browsing through YouTube, consider subscribing and dropping a like. Anyways, guys, I'm Peg City Hockey. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out, take care, and I will see you guys in my next video.